step to getting started is to warp your loom. We are going to be warping using a heddle bar today. I like to use my favorite cotton warping thread. Located in your materials list, this cotton thread is durable and helps to prevent breaking when warping the loom. It comes in a variety of colors that you can find online. The heddle bar is used to create an opening in between your warp threads. When we warp our loom, we will warp it through each groove in the heddle bar. This will allow the heddle bar to rotate, open and close, creating a shed for you to weave. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense now. We will go over this all later on in our class. The warping process is super simple, and once you get the hang of it, you'll be breezing through in no time. To start, I take my cotton warp thread and place it in one of the grooves. We want to make sure we secure it so it doesn't slip out later. To do this, I twine the warp thread around each notch in the frame loom a few times. It doesn't matter if you skip a few or go left to right or right to left. As long as you're following the step-by-step process, you'll be doing fine. I then go back in the reverse direction around each notch to make sure that my warp thread is secure. Once your warp thread is secure, it's time to start warping. These looms are especially great because they have notches that allow you to warp each individual thread securely. Pull up your heddle bar so it's closer to the top of your loom. Align the heddle bar's first groove with the first notch in your loom and slip the cotton thread through the first notch. You will pull this taut all the way to the bottom of, again, the first notch at the bottom of your loom. Simply pull the warp thread around the bottom of the first notch and up into the second notch. I like to hold some tension with my index finger and thumb while I'm pulling the thread in between the notches so that it stays secure. Bring the thread back up to your heddle bar, and this time you will go through the second notch in your heddle bar. Pay attention that you don't mix up the notches. If you do, it's simple to move them over. Put the thread back into the first notch on your loom. Then move to the second notch in your loom. We will go back down to the third notch in your heddle bar, then to the second notch on your frame loom. Go back around holding it taut and pull it up to the fourth notch in your heddle bar. Then go back up to the second notch in your loom. You will end up having 2 warp threads in between each notch on your loom and 1 warp thread in between each groove on your heddle bar. Make sure that you hold tension while you're pulling the warp threads around the notches and through the grooves on your heddle bar. It's okay if it's not perfect. You'll have the chance to tighten the tension later when we're finished warping. Continue pulling the warp threads up and back and through the grooves on the heddle bar, making sure you notice that you're doing each individual notch with 2 warp threads and only 1 warp thread through each individual heddle bar notch. If you accidentally miss it, just slip your finger under the warp thread and move it over to the correct groove. Double check as you go along so you don't have to go back and rewarp your entire frame loom. Taking your time with this process now saves you loads of time later, and as you get the hang of it, it will become second nature. Continue warping your frame loom until you've come completely to the other side. As I come to the other side of my frame loom, you may notice that you have a few extra spaces left on your heddle bar, even though all of the notches on your frame loom are full. Don't worry, it's okay to have a few extra heddle bar grooves left. Pull your last warp thread down to the bottom of your frame loom, and you're going to repeat the steps that we did in the beginning to secure the warp thread into your frame loom. Take your warp thread and go backwards through the notches, twining each warp thread around several of the notches, just like we did in the beginning of the warping. Pull the warp thread around each notch on the bottom of your frame loom as you go along for several notches. Then go back the opposite direction till you get to the end of the notches. It's okay if some of your warp threads slipped on your way back to the beginning of the notches. It's still holding the tension at this point. Now your loom is completely warped, and you can see that the heddle bar is securely in place. If you tilt the heddle bar towards you and away from you, you will notice different warp threads on your loom will lift and lower. This is called opening and closing the shed. The shed is the space in between the warp threads where you will weave your tabby. You will insert your needle in between the spaces or the shed in between the warp threads. The alternating directions of warp threads is what will create your tabby or plain weave pattern. Using a heddle bar to raise and lower the warp threads makes weaving a plain weave so much easier. Just be sure to check that when you're raising and lowering, your warp threads don't slip out of the grooves of the heddle bar. If they do, just simply move them over one by one until they match. If you need to adjust the tension of your loom, you can do this by turning the screws at the top of your loom. Rotate the bar forwards or backwards to adjust the tension. This will tighten your warp threads and create that elasticity that you're looking for on your warp. It should feel like a tight rubber band. And there you have it. Your warp loom is complete and ready for you to begin your project.